My name is Lee Lavis. I am a Senior Digital Learning Coordinator for the University of the Arts London. And prior to that, I was working in a few other colleges. Today's session is called Hihaho, Bringing Videos to Life. I don't know if my title really does it justice. It's an incredibly powerful tool. What I want you to do before we get started with the session, before I say anything more about myself, is think about some of the videos that you use in your classroom, or perhaps you assign as supplementary work for students to watch either ahead of class or after class, and think to yourself what you could do if you could add questions to those videos and track the answers, or even if you just had the ability to see if your students engaged with the video and for how long and whether they skipped through. And to think about that as in that educational application for those kinds of features, because that is the kind of tool we're looking at today. So before we get into that in any level of detail, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me. Right, so who am I? I've given you my name, Lee, but I've had a pretty interesting backstory in how I ended up in the role I have today. What's not represented on this little flagpole is I actually got my start in journalism. I studied journalism at the University of Western Ontario, coincidentally in London, Canada, the sort of sister city to London, England. And I started working as a journalist in print journalism for about a year. This was around the time that, I mean, it's still the case, but print journalism was suffering. And at the end of it, it did not, myself and about 11 other people, we were all sort of brand new, were not offered an opportunity to continue. But fortunately, I had a good friend who had been teaching in Korea at the time and was looking to move on. And he suggested that I take his place. So I applied for the job and I was accepted and I taught for a year. And then after that year, they expanded the campus and offered me the opportunity to be head teacher, which I kept the role of for the next 3 years. And during that time, I brought a lot of technology into my classroom and asked my students to engage with it as well, because it really helped. Certain types of technology not only help them develop important digital skills and literacies, but it also really connected our subject with the subject you're studying with what was happening outside of the classroom. So social media became a feature in my classroom as well in a critical way. And that developed an interest in learning technology for me. So at the end of my 4 years as teaching in Korea, I decided that I would pursue an MA. And I applied to do my MA in EdTech in several different places. Fortunately, I was accepted in all, but the most intriguing of all of them was UCL, which has the Institute of Education. And I joined the university to do my master's degree, where I studied machine learning and intelligent tutoring systems, working with private companies to help them better understand the strategies and tactics that their tutors were using in online systems and provide them with important feedback that they can use live to adjust their teaching and adjust their instruction when they're meeting with a student online one-to-one. After that, I got my start at Regent's University London as a learning technology advisor. And since then, I've joined University of the Arts London, which is a federated group of 6 colleges. I work for the London College of Communication, and I've just recently been promoted to Senior Digital Learning Coordinator. And apparently I can't stop bragging about it. So that's a bit about my background. Let's talk about today's session. So I like to say with every session that by the end of it, we will have accomplished certain goals together. In this case, the numbers aren't appearing correctly, which Genta knows is something I meant to correct. But if you bear with me, by the end of this session, you will know, 1, how to create engaging educational videos, 2, how to add interactions to already existing videos, for example, YouTube, 3, how to publish and share the work that you do, and 4, how to monitor the engagement of those people who participate and watch your video, and how to look at quiz results from those videos. So let's dive right in now. I like to start my sessions with a broad problem because with any piece of technology, it's always addressing a problem. And I think as teachers, we can all agree that videos can be entertaining, videos can be engaging, but they're often a very passive experience. And this is the problem that hihaho was designed to address. How can we make educational videos a less passive learning experience? How can we ensure that while watching, you're also engaged, you're making judgments, and you're also thinking critically and making choices? And that is precisely what the tool allows you to do with your videos. Now, parallel to that, I think there are 2 other problems. How can we maximize class time for active learning, collaboration, and discussion? Again, as teachers, we'll try to prepare our students with resources, whether those are based in video or in text, that they need to engage with before class to ensure that they're prepared to participate. That way we can do something more active in class time than simply just lecture. And it's often the case that we can't tell for sure whether everybody has engaged with the pre-class work equally. And it's difficult then for us to judge at what level to target our instruction. So if we were able to know in advance what misconceptions students have based on quiz results, or whether they even watched the video materials we shared, that would help us adjust what we do in class. And if we are providing them with highly interactive material, videos that they can actually interact with, I think we can also predict that our students will use that material and overall be better prepared for an active classroom. And the second sort of sub-problem here is how can we evaluate academic engagement while learning remotely? And this is a particularly topical problem, one as teachers we're all facing right now, and one that I work with professors on every day, is how do we know that our students are engaging with the work from home? And it's often pretty difficult to judge that. And hihaho provides us with the means to do that. It's built around video learning resources. So with these 3 problems sort of framing today's session, we're going to start to talk about what hihaho is and how it works. So I thought I'd be kind of cute with the title of this slide, hihaho. Hihaho is a Dutch-based company. They've produced a very simple, although it may not seem that way at first when you look at it, a very simple tool for adding interactive layers to online videos. And to put that even more succinctly, you're not changing the video so much as adding to the video, augmenting it, for example, by adding a layer on top of what displays in the video. So that means you're not cutting and removing pieces from the video, adding additional video, for example, but you're potentially adding buttons to the video that allow students to move to a different part of the video, go to a website. You could be adding images, questions that are layered right on top of the video. And even more importantly for educators, you could be adding a table of contents so that students are able to select a particular portion of the video that they need to potentially review. It's a really simple and straightforward process that can be broken down into 3 steps when you're using hihaho. The first step, upload a video. This could be a video you've already recorded yourself, or it could be a video that you regularly use on Vimeo or YouTube that you can link to. The next step is to enhance it. This is when you add all these additional layers and interactions. And the last step is to share it, to deliver it to those people who need to view and engage with it. So now I'm going to jump directly into the website. So actually, why don't we start from the beginning? Hihaho, very simply, there's no one else out there with a name like that. You can type it into your browser and it will be the first thing you find there. I actually really admire this name. I was made to understand that it was named this way because it's very simple to pronounce in a variety of different languages, and I think that's a really important it says a lot to the company's sense of inclusivity. So that meant a lot to me when I first engaged with it. So this is what the site looks like. It's the landing page. Mine is displaying a little strangely, but what you would do is once you're on the page, you'll go to sign in. Now in my case, it's going to take me directly to my video dashboard. In yours, it'll allow you to create your own account, and we'll talk about that process later. But yes, as I was saying, once you've signed in, it takes you to your video dashboard, and it shows you all the videos that you have uploaded to hihaho, whether those are connected through YouTube or they're your own videos that are now hosted on the site. On this page, you can scroll through them, and it's very simple to share those videos. By clicking here, you're able to go to the page with the link for your video to share with others. Now, for today's session, there's a lot of ground to cover in terms of what you can do with hihaho. So I thought it might be valuable to have an illustrative example of a lot of the different features. So what I've done is I've created a video at the top here called Mansion Video Tour. Coincidentally, mansions in Canada, I swear to God, that had nothing to do with my background. And I'm going to use this video, though it's not educational, just to illustrate how hihaho works. And then I'm going to show you some educational applications for this video or for this tool. In fact, I'm going to speak about 4 different educational applications, but we'll start with just the example. So I'm going to select Mansion Video Tour, and this will take me to the editing page. I want to get you oriented to this page before I show you what this video currently looks like. We'll start just at the very top here. You can see this is the title. When you're editing your own videos, simply by clicking on the title, you're able to make that change. For example, I can remove video and just save it as Mansion Tour. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see the different interaction types that you can add as layers to your video. For example, adding a question or adding text as a button that appears on the video. We're going to look at these 2 in particular so that you can see what the settings are like and what the process is for adding a layer. At the very bottom of the page here, you can see I've done some experimentation. This is the timeline. On the left side, you can see all the different interactions that I have added to this video. In the center here, you'll see the timeline as well as the duration for each of these interactions. This one, for example, this long blue bar, you can tell pretty much runs the duration of the whole video. But on the right-hand side, you can check precisely what the duration is for each of the interactions that display on my timeline. So for example, you can see that the content interaction, which is my table of contents, displays from, and I'll zoom in a little bit, from 54 seconds in this video to 12 minutes and 17 seconds, which is the end of the video, whereas others might display from 1 minute 07, 1 minute and 7 seconds to 7 seconds beyond that. What I love about the tool is that it gets very precise. You can even go into milliseconds. I'm going to zoom out now. Now, to show you what this tool is capable of, I'm going to select preview mode in the top here. So in the top right-hand side where my mouse is circling, I'll select preview, and this is going to play the video, and you'll see the interactions that I've added. Unfortunately, you're not going to hear what the video is playing. There are no voices, it's just some music, but we're here mostly for the visual experience. So just keep an eye out for these additions, and I'll explain them as we go along. And we'll play. So far, this is just the original video, but now that we've entered into the mansion, you might notice something in the top right-hand side has just appeared. Now I'm going to pause for a second. This is the table of contents that I've added as a layer. If I click that as a viewer, I suddenly have all these options I can select from that can take me anywhere in this video. So while I was setting this up, I got to choose the precise timing that each one of these would follow. So let's test this out. If everyone could open up their chat, and I'm going to count down from, say, 10 seconds, and at the end of that 10 seconds, I'm going to see what you've written, and that is where we're going to go. So I want those people in attendance right now to choose the place they want to go to, type it into the chat, and we'll actually, you know what, we'll just choose whatever's most popular. So type where in this video you want to go to, which room you want to see. Please put that in the chat right now. Kitchen, office, master bedroom, good choice. Theater, very nice. Dining room. And I'm almost there. Okay. Now I have some insider information. I know we're going to be seeing some of these rooms already. So I'm going to choose one that I had no intention of showing. I'm going to take you now to the theater. You can see the video moves along. If you notice at the very bottom here, not the most impressive theater, I'm aware. You can see that the timeline has changed. We've moved up in the video, and the video continues. I'm going to take us back now to the foyer. And don't be disappointed, you're going to have an opportunity to see a few more rooms. So in a moment, you're going to see another interaction type appear. So what's happened now is I've added a pause interaction, which means the video will not continue playing. And I've also combined that pause with two colored hotspot interactions. And this is giving you the choice. Where would you like to go next? What's really great about the hotspot is you can add text that appears when the cursor hovers over it. As you can see right now, hovering over the purple hotspot displays tour the dining room. Hovering over the red hotspot, tour the kitchen. You can imagine some of the educational implications of this. If you had an educational video which had a lot of figures on it or a lot of information, you could put hotspots that students can hover over to see additional information. You could have an image, for example, with many figures in it. Let's say hypothetically it's a historical video. You could put hotspots on the people appearing in that image, and students could hover over to learn more about them. In this case, I'm going to take another vote. Let's see. What do we want, guys? Is it going to be kitchen or is it going to be dining room? So please type those into the chat. Kitchen, dining room, kitchen, that's 2 for kitchen, 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 kitchen. Excellent. Okay, good choice. All right, you're seeing a lot of the dining room right now, to be honest. So I'm going to take you guys on a quick tour of the kitchen by selecting this hotspot. Now, this is one of the most important features of the tool. With any interaction that you add, you can also set a response action, like I just did. When I clicked that hotspot, the response action was to take me somewhere else in the video. You're also noticing, you would have noticed a moment ago, that another interaction started playing. This is the scrolling text interaction. I could make this clickable if I wanted to, but in this case I didn't. Gorgeous kitchen, right? By the way, most of the information displayed in this video is all made up. I should tell you that as well. I have no idea if that's Italian marble. So I'm going to now take us ahead a little bit. Actually, you know what? I'm going to let the video play just for a second. So we're getting that dining room tour after all. And you can see there's another scrolling text interaction that appears. In an educational context, I would normally use scrolling text in my video if I was giving instructions to students. Now a new interaction is about to start playing. I'm going to pause myself right now. But I have added images on top of the video, and I've made those images clickable. They're now buttons. And you're able to, as a viewer, click on any of these images to take you to another room in the house. So it just so happens that this house has 5 rooms. I'm going to continue playing the video, and you're going to notice there's another interaction type displaying here in a moment. So you'll notice that we just jumped back in the video. This is really useful. This is the loop interaction. No, that might not be the right name, but I'll tell you about it in a second. So the way this works is it lets you, it's the jump. It's the jump interaction. It lets you, when you hit a certain time in your video, you can either jump ahead or jump back. In this case, we continue to jump back until we make a choice. And you can see how this could be applied in an educational video. So why don't we make another choice? I don't know how to describe these. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's type it in. Where do we want to go? 3, 3, 2, 1, 5. Okay, 3 is getting, 2, 5. Okay, let's get a tiebreaker here. It's either 3, 2, or 5. Okay, 5 again. All right, we're going to go check out 5. I'll tell you now, though, 3 was the master bedroom. So why don't we jump ahead to 5? So by selecting this now, we move into bedroom number 5. It's a very short bedroom tour. I'm going to go now back to where we were a moment ago. I'm going to take you to the master bedroom to show you some other interaction types. So here we are. I've clicked the master bedroom. We've jumped ahead in the video. We'll let this play through just a little bit longer. I'm very jealous of whoever lives in this house, frankly. I live in an apartment. What do you guys think of it so far? Yeah. Okay. In a moment, you're about to see another interaction type. So I'm pausing it. It may not display quite as nicely, but I'm pausing it because what I've done is I've added a zoom in interaction, which allows you to choose a portion of your screen that the camera would zoom into. So you're choosing a portion of that video screen to zoom into. And you can think of some of the educational applications of that as well. It's a great interaction if you're trying to focus students' attention on a specific part of a page. And there's a specific part of the video that's displaying. There's another interaction type you're going to see in a moment that does something quite similar. So I'm going to start playing again, and you're going to see us zooming back out. Now, what I've done is I've added two interactions. I've paused the screen, so I'm not adding a pause button, but I've added text, which says the master bedroom has a shower and a bathtub. And I've also added an interaction that focuses on by sort of obscuring the rest of the screen on a very specific part of the image. And you can also think of some of the educational applications of that. If you want students to focus their attention on a very specific part of the video, a very specific visual part of the video. And you'll notice it disappears gradually again, and the video continues. And we have another opportunity to go back and choose another room, and the cycle goes on. I'm going to now exit this playback, and I'm going to come back into the video editing part of hihaho. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I did some of this. I'm going to need your help, by the way, in this process. So there's going to be more questions coming from me where I'll need more answers in the chat. Okay. So it looks like we're going to reserve our questions till the end, which is probably smart for timing. So let's just talk about some of the interactions I showed you. I showed you the pause screen. The pause, if you remember back to when we had to choose between the kitchen and the dining room, I added the pause to stop the video from continuing to play, giving us time to make that choice. The jump to, if you remember the 5 bedrooms, I use this interaction so that we would continually go through a cycle. So every time we hit a certain point in the video, it would take us back again, giving us the time we needed to choose a bedroom. And we'll stay in that loop until we make a choice. The menu was the table of contents that displayed in the top right of the video that we used to choose the theater to see. I didn't add a rating to this video, but I thought about having a rating question where we would have to vote on our favorite room. So you could add the rating to appear at the end of every room that you visit, and you could give it a grade. I mean, for example, do we all think that the master bedroom was 5 stars? Or maybe we thought there actually wasn't enough closet space. Text, anytime, or most of the time, that you saw a block of text appear on the screen, that was the text interaction. So for example, the instructions that said choose a room, I added that as text. Or when we were in the master bedroom's ensuite bathroom, I added a block of text that said master bedroom has a bathroom, or has a shower and a bathtub. Scrolling text, if you might remember, we saw that in the kitchen as well as in the dining room, giving us a little bit of information about both spaces. The image, I added those 5 bedrooms for us to choose using the image interaction. The hotspot, I added that when we were choosing between the dining room and the kitchen, when we had the, I think it was the pink and purple buttons to choose from. No, purple and red. So that was the flashing light hotspot, which whenever we put our cursor over, gave some text and allowed us to click to make a choice. Transparent button isn't represented in this video example, but it allows you to add an invisible, clickable button on top of any portion of the video. So for example, if I had an image in my video that had several figures in it, or it had, let's say, different experiments, you could put an invisible button over top of them with instructions to click on the image you're interested in or click on the figure you'd like to learn more about. And that invisible button could take you to somewhere else in the video, or it could take you to a website. So that's how transparent buttons work. You can't see them, but they're layered on top of the images in your video. Highlight was the master bedroom ensuite, actually. So do you remember in the master bedroom, we went into the bathroom and we saw a box appear around the bathtub and the shower, and everything else was obscured. That is highlight. It focuses your attention on one part of the screen. And then sound, you can add your own sound layer on top of the video, so you can add audio files. And zoom in, if you remember, that was the walk-in closet where we zoomed in to see the shoe rack and we zoomed back out again. So that's a little bit about those interactions. Let's now add some of our own. The first one we're going to add is text. So I'm going to start playing the video here. And as the video is playing, you'll notice this pink line is moving across the timeline. And I can pause at any point in the video and add a new interaction that would also start right in that moment. So let's start this over again. I want to add a text button right at the beginning of the video. And I want this text to say, let's see, welcome to 19 Clyde Court. Now let's pretend we're realtors for a moment. I actually have no idea how much this property is worth, but let's all put some figures in here. How many millions of dollars is this house? Just give me some numbers in the chat. 1.5? All right. 1.5. 5. All right. 66. All right, we're going to go with 66 million. It's hugely overvalued. Hugely overvalued. We'll just add a little dollar sign there. This video was put up on YouTube by a realtor. I just wanted something that made it really easy to add a lot of interactions to and didn't have any voiceover, so it worked out quite well for me. I'm now going to, so what I've done is I've typed into the text area here what I want to appear on the screen. In the title, I'm going to give it a specific name, and this is a good piece of advice that was given to me by a member of hihaho. They suggested that every interaction you add, you give it a unique name so it's easy for you to locate it on the timeline when you go back to edit. So right now, if you look at the very bottom of my screen on the left side, this new interaction is just called text. If I didn't change the title, anytime I add a text interaction, it's going to be called text. So I'm going to change this one to welcome to. That way I know what it was. I can choose a background color for this. Let's go with, let's keep it actually translucent for now. I can even give it an action. Now, this is how you're able to use layers as clickable items. For example, I could choose that if you click this button, you go ahead to a specific time in the video, or you can jump back to the beginning of the video. You can even set it to jump ahead. You can use this option, the action type, as a hyperlink. So if a student clicks the text interaction, it could take them to a website. You can even set it so it jumps to another type of interaction in the video. In this case, I'm not going to set any action types for my text. I just want it to display. Next, let's look at style. On this page, I can choose the aesthetic, so I can round the corners if I want to. So you might be noticing that as I drag this little ball along the pink line, the corners of the text box are getting more and more rounded. I'm going to keep it partially rounded. I can decide if I want to give it a border, and I can give that border a specific color. Black, let's go orange. And then you can add padding to the top. So how close do you want the text to display to the top of the text box? If I reduce the padding, you see the text starts to rise. And another thing I would suggest is if you're adding interactions like this type, you should make them fade in and fade out. To have them appear abruptly and abruptly disappear when the video is playing can be a very disorienting experience. So it's worthwhile to usually set those, change those settings so that the image slowly fades in and then fades away after the duration for that has run. So I'm going to set that to fade out as well. I'm now going to adjust the size, which you see I can do by using my cursor on the screen itself. So on the video, I can make it larger, I can make it smaller, and I can choose in which part of the screen I want it to display. And then all I need to do is save. So now this text is part of the video, and when I go back to play it, it will display and then disappear. So I'm going to press play on the video again, starting from the beginning. So the text should appear. There it goes. So the text now is visible on the screen. And I want it to disappear the moment we get inside the house. There we go. If I want it to be at the precise moment that my content activity appears, all I need to do is look at the timeline, find the content interaction, and then at the very end of that, I can look at the duration and I can copy when that interaction starts. So I'm just clicking Control C, and then I can paste that into the end time for my welcome text. So now, when I go back to play, start that again, the text will appear, and we'll go back through the front door. And then the moment the content menu appears, the text fades away. So that's a very basic interaction type. Any questions about this interaction so far? Because we're going to look at one of the more complicated and useful interactions for teachers in a moment, the question. Okay, let's talk about the question. There are 4 question types that you can add to your video: multiple choice, multiple response, entry, and open question. Let me just quickly describe the differences here. So the first two is probably going to be very self-evident. Multiple choice allows students to select one correct answer. Multiple response, little tick boxes, could mean there are multiple correct answers that students can select. These two question types are of a kind. They're very similar. So when you're creating these, hihaho makes it very easy for you to shift between them if you decide you're changing the question type. And I'll show you that shortly when we run some experiments. Beneath that, we have the entry question. This question type requires students to type in an answer, but not just any answer, a very specific answer. So the example that was given to me when I was learning this tool was how many wheels on a car? Very simple. You need students to type in either the number 4 or spell out 4. So that is when you'd use something like an entry question. Open questions are ungraded, but allow students to type in. It's completely open answer, so students can type in whatever they like. I've prepared a couple questions for us to play with just to show you the differences of these 4. We'll start with adding a multiple choice question. So I've selected multiple choice. At the very top, I can input my question here. Now, I chose these as a way of testing everybody in today's session. I'm sorry if you thought this wasn't going to be an interactive session, but I'm afraid it is. How many flowers were in the vase? So I'm going to put in a couple of answers now, and I get to toggle whether it's correct or incorrect. So I know how many there were, but I won't tell you just yet. You'll likely see it in a moment once I change this. So I'm just going to put in 3 potential answers here. What do people think? How many flowers are in the vase? Let's see who gets it right. 12, 11, 10, 12. It's stranger than you think. It's 11. It was 11 flowers in the vase. Not even a dozen roses. This person bought their wife, 11, not 12, 11. Little cheap perhaps for somebody who owns a mansion. Anyways, so I'm going to indicate that that is the correct answer now. So I've ticked this. All I have to do is click it. I can set up different action types. So I could set it so that if you get the correct answer, the video just continues playing. If you get the incorrect answer, it can go right back to the beginning of the video and you can watch it over again, this time with a keen eye to spot how many flowers there are. So that is another way I love using hihaho. If you're putting in a question and the student gets it wrong, you can choose the result. You can decide that the action, the reaction of getting it wrong, is for them to go back in the video to re-watch the section that helps them get the correct answer. You can also add images that appear next to the question. Although I've noticed that when I add an image, if it's too large, you get a little scroll bar on the side. The image doesn't adjust its size. So you need to be careful about adding images because they could end up taking more space than you expect. And you can decide on the actions. For example, after the student answers the question, they can see a feedback screen that can provide them with, well done, you spotted the right number. You can enable color indication. So the feedback screen will be green if they got it right, red if they got it wrong. And you can enable an automatic feedback title, or you can add your own. Another thing I love is you can add unique feedback for each answer. So you can do that right next to each of the answers I've supplied here. So you can see there's an additional box for that over there. Let's talk about advanced features. First, points. You can give them a score. You can say this is worth 1 point. This is worth 10 points. You can shuffle the answers so they're never the same. You can set it so that it simply just asks the question again if they got it wrong. You can change the start time. In this case, I've tested this and I have a very specific start time that I want it to display. So I want it to display at 1 minute and 6 seconds and 58 milliseconds. And as I said earlier, multiple choice and multiple response are two questions of a type. Because they're so similar, you can change the question type while you're editing it. You could decide, oh, actually, it's better if I change this so that they can select more than one answer. So you could quickly change it to multiple response. And then at the bottom, you also have an option to show a back button. So let's say a student is watching the video and comes to a question. They haven't been paying attention, and they need to review a part of your video to get the right answer. Well, the back button allows them to do that. You can give it a title that says, go back, rewatch this section of the video, and then you can decide that this button, the back button, can jump to a specific time in your video to help them find that answer again. So when they come back to the question, they're ready to answer it this time. So I like to use the back button. You can also show the back button on the feedback screen as well, giving the student the choice to either continue watching the video, or if they got it wrong and the feedback screen is saying so, they can click the back button there to rewatch and redo. So why don't we save this question and see how it looks. Let's go into preview. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Nope. So at 1:06, the question is going to display. There it is. We just passed the vase. How many flowers? There are 11, strangely, 11 flowers. If I select that and submit, super. I get my feedback page. I click continue, and the video continues. If I need to change this, if there's anything I want to change to this interaction, all I need to do is double click on the timeline. So I'll show that again. Let's cancel. All I need to do is find the interaction I want to change. I can double click it here in the timeline. I can double click it on the side, but when I do so, it loads the settings page again to let me edit it. And this time I could say, I'd prefer the question to be multiple response. Now, of course, it doesn't make any sense that there can be 10 flowers, 12 flowers, and possibly 11 flowers all at the same time. So let's try a different question. Let's try a question, what color flowers were in the vase? And let's see if people notice this. So I'm going to write down some possible flower colors. Which one of these is wrong? One of these is wrong. Let's see. Is it red, blue, yellow, or white? Which one of those colors was not in our vase? Yellow, yellow, red, blue? Well, you'd be surprised. Blue. Blue was the only color that was not represented in the vase. So if I ran the question again, students would have the opportunity to choose. Yes, congratulations, Caroline. Students would have the opportunity to choose multiple answers. And I could again set it up so that if they get it wrong, if they choose the wrong one, it can jump back to a specific part of the video. It can give them some feedback to help them make a better choice, all of which is very useful to us as teachers. So I'm going to cancel this now. I'm not going to make this change. But let's talk about the other question types. So there was the entry question and the open question. We'll start with the entry question. So we get to type our question in here, and I'm going to make it even more complicated for us. How many red flowers were in the vase? And I'm not going to put the answers in just yet, but you can see that all the same features are here. We can decide what happens as a result of getting the right answer or as a result of getting the wrong answer. Does the video continue playing? Does it repeat the question? Does it take you to a specific time in the video? Does it take you to another interaction that you've added to the video? And at the bottom, you can add feedback for correct and incorrect, and you can decide what happens after you see the feedback screen by changing the action type. The reason I'm not going to put these answers in yet is because I want you to see how this question differs from others. The entry question allows you to help focus students to ensure they get the right spelling and that they phrase their question properly. One of the potential issues with an entry question is if you're not careful, students can potentially get the right answer, but the system thinks it's the wrong answer. I'll give you an example. Let's say I did ask how many wheels are on a car, and I said the right answer is 4, and I spelled 4. What happens if a student types the number 4? The question would say their answer is wrong. So you need to be careful. You can help focus that by writing out a prefix and a suffix. So what you can put the answer or as a phrase. For example, in this case, we're asking how many red flowers there are. So you could say that there are blank red flowers. And you can notice as I'm typing this in the video, where the student will add their own answer, it now appears in a sentence form. And if I go back into general, I can type in the answers. So actually, guys, there weren't 4 red flowers. There were 5. There were 5 red flowers. So I can type in the number 5. I can spell it out. But the important thing is, either of these would be a correct answer now because they're accepted that way. If I had just put 5 as a number, then the student could potentially get it wrong while technically having the question right. So that's something to be careful about. If I go to advanced, again, beneath the prefix and the suffix, you'll see I can change the number of points for the question. I can change the start time, but I also can change the question type. And now, just as multiple choice and multiple response are similar questions, changing the question type allows me to change it to an open question, which doesn't have a correct answer, but would allow my students to type in their own response that I can view after. So if I change it to open question, and I go back to general now, I can type in an open question like, what is your favorite room in any house? And why? And now my students have the opportunity to write their own response and give an explanation, and there's no correct or incorrect answer. Once they do this, they're able to move on with the rest of the video. So just to recap of what we've done already. We've seen some of these interactions literally in action. We've added text to this video, and we've also experimented with the questions. And I encourage you to try playing with this tool and experiment with them yourself. Let's talk about what happens next when the video is finished and it's ready for you to share. Well, you'll notice at the top of the page here, there's a button Share, but there's also over here a button Publish your video. They do the same thing. They'll take you to a page where you get to, you see the link and you can change the settings for how it is shared, whether it's embedded in a website or it's shared as a URL. You can also click on the little settings wheel that you see right in the top, just under my name in the top right-hand side of the screen. And when I click settings, it takes me to this page with multiple tabs. Under publishing, I can set it so that anyone can see this video or exclusively people with a link, people I select. Embed only allows me to add it to websites, but no one else can see it anywhere beyond that website, or even only me. I tend to select people with the link because then I can send it out to my students. This is the URL that I would copy and I would share. So if I was to copy and paste this into the chat, you would be able to view my video. Under General, you get to change the title of the video. You can change the language of the player. So if you are a Spanish teacher, for example, perhaps you want the buttons in the player to display in Spanish. So you could do that, changing it to Espanol. You could add subtitles if you have the subtitle file, and I always encourage captions, so we want to be inclusive. You can decide what the generic text size is, add notes for yourself. Advanced allows you to trim your video down. So in this case, I actually cut the video down. I moved it up from the beginning, which started from an aerial view and moved in. I started closer to the door and I cut off a portion of the end of the video to shorten it. You have the option to allow viewers to navigate through the video. What that means is, just like in YouTube, where we can click ahead in the time of the video, you could let your students do that as well. You might decide, actually, I don't want my students to have that ability because they might miss important information. They might miss a quiz. So you can take that away. If I untick this, now students won't be able to jump back and forth in my video. They will have to play it through sequentially, using only the interactions, only the table of contents to move in the video. And you can also take away the time indication in the bar. If you have a long video, it can be intimidating to people to start watching it if they know it's going to be 54 minutes long. But also, if your video is made up of broken up into portions, for example, like the mansion was broken up into rooms, it doesn't matter how long the video is because you have a table of contents that lets you select just the places you're interested in seeing. So it might not be relevant to know the length of the video. Over here, you can plant flags, which I think is a great feature. It allows you to see how far each individual viewer got in your video, which could be useful as a teacher to know how far each student got. And then you can decide what happens at the end of the video, which is something I want to talk more about because you can suggest additional videos that students can watch. So if you're putting together a playlist, for example, you can upload all the videos from your playlist into hihaho and then set it up so that at the end of each video they watch, it suggests a follow-up video. Under reporting, you can set the percentage in which they need to receive in order to pass while watching the video, and you can also download a package, a SCORM package for your video, your interactive video, that can be embedded in learning management systems. My college uses Moodle. I've worked for colleges that use Canvas and Blackboard. The SCORM package would allow you to embed it directly in a course site in one of those systems. And lastly, Collecting viewer data. This is a great feature. If you want to know who is viewing your video and from where, you can add questions that appear at the beginning of your video, for example. So if I add a variable like, name, please enter your name, then every time somebody watches my video, they can type their name in. And when I look at the statistics for my video, I'll see their name against the progress that they made and the answers that they gave. Of course, it doesn't prevent people from misrepresenting themselves. They could put in whatever name they please, Robert Downey Jr. And it could potentially be problematic if you have students putting in their peers' names and then intentionally getting questions wrong. And that could be difficult for you as a tutor who's trying to decide everyone's level of understanding. So there is another way that you can ensure you always have the right names. It's a little more complicated, and it involves using an Excel spreadsheet template. But fortunately, hihaho provides you with that template. So you can download it, and then there's a process to upload it. I unfortunately don't have the time to discuss that any further, but if you want to put that in the question, perhaps at the end of today's session, we can talk about that. So I'm just going to save the video as is, and I'm going to talk about one of my favorite features of hihaho using a separate video. So I've clicked at the top here where it says my hihaho. It's taken me back to my dashboard, and I'm going to look at this video that they shared with me. It's called Statistics Example. This video has had multiple people interact with it, and we can look at what those interactions have produced. So I'm going to select to view that now. At the very top, you get an overall statistical dashboard here. You get number of views. Video was not started. So 4 times the video was opened but not played. Video was started. Number of times the video started, 14 times. 78% of people who opened this video started the video, and 61% finished the video. And you can get a success percentage. 83% of them got the correct answers and passed this video. Now, if you look down here, you can also see the dates and times when it was viewed, and its highest peak was on the 2nd of December. You can see the success percentage. So 15 people passed, 3 people did not. You can look at each question. So answered correctly, 82% of people answered how long should you exercise each day correctly, which was an open question. How many people from the Netherlands exercise? 73% got that correct. It gets into very granular detail, which is what I absolutely love this for. And then you can look at the last 50 sessions that have been viewed. So most of us won't have a class size larger than that. You can download that and get all the statistical data for all the people who viewed it, how they did in the questions, whether they watched the whole thing, for example. And then really neat feature is device statistics. As teachers teaching remotely right now, a lot of us are anyways, it's useful to know what personal devices your students are learning on, because there can be restrictions depending on whether it's a mobile phone or a computer. If they're learning on a mobile phone, you'll know that certain types of learning activities aren't going to work very well. You'll also know that certain types of interactions will not display too well if they have a small screen. Small text, for example, won't show very well on a mobile device. So it's useful to gather that information as well. The last thing I'm going to talk about on this page before we talk about educational applications, and I realize I'm running a little long, knowledge base. At the very, very top of the page, I'm going to circle it. If you start experimenting with this tool and you have questions, they have an extremely thorough archive of information that you can go through to find answers to your questions. I was able to get a lot of my questions answered before I was able to speak with anyone at hihaho. So I commend them on this. The knowledge base feature is fantastic and very thorough. So we're going to now leave hihaho, and we're going to temporarily return to my presentation where I want to talk about the educational applications of this tool. So you should be seeing hihaho in education. There are 4 ways I envision using this tool. And there's potentially many more than that, depending on your own teaching practice. The first way is to supplement instruction with videos enhanced with hihaho interactions. There is a very, very common type of YouTube educational video I like to call teacher with whiteboard, where the teacher has illustrated something on the whiteboard and they're drawing attention to the different features of that whiteboard, but it can be somewhat disorienting for students. What could be helpful is if in this example, you had hotspots appear on the screen that could focus the student's attention to a particular part of the whiteboard. Or if you use the highlighter, which only displays a specific part of the screen for you to see. You can also create a blended learning activity. Now, I'm going to be sharing a resource with all the attendees today that links to a blended learning activity I created. So when I used to teach more often, I would always have a challenge question for my students before class, something creative, where they'd have to engage with the material, and we'd start class with a discussion around that and a little bit of debate. And this is an example that I put together. So it's blended because it is asking students to prepare in advance, do some research, and it's integrating that at-home work, that's sort of asynchronous element, with the in-person synchronous elements of class, and it's enhancing both. So you'll see in this example, and you'll be able to interact with it yourself in the material I'm going to send to you at the end of this video that I'm going to put in the chat, sorry, the end of our session. You can also create a flipped learning activity. Now, put very simply, flipped learning is building your lessons around active learning in the classroom, around collaborative learning in the classroom. It's about designing the work that students do at home so that they are better prepared to do something very active in the classroom, like a discussion, for example. So in this case, you decide on an interactive format for class time, something like a discussion, a project, role play, problem-based learning, case study, maybe even peer instruction. And then you find ways to make this as active as possible and to give you an opportunity to observe how students are learning. And then you work backwards. What do students need to know in advance to make sure that they are ready for this lesson? What pre-class work will support them in this very active classroom space? How can you ensure that each student is understanding at a similar level? Well, using hihaho and the ability to see their engagement on a dashboard can help you do just that. Ensure that students are engaging equally and understand equally. And the last example I'll give is revision. So though you can't easily put together, or very simply put together, a playlist in hihaho, you can link videos up. So what you could do is you could choose an upcoming summative assessment for your class. You can review the learning objectives for that assessment, identify what students need to know, then find readily available videos online, add quiz questions, add hotspots with additional information, pauses for summary notes, a variety of different actions. And then you can share these links with students as a revision playlist so they can prepare for a test or an exam. And you can connect these videos together using the suggest more videos function we looked at earlier. Lastly, some chat about strengths and areas for advancement. So I actually think that the strengths vastly outweigh any areas for improvement here. Apologies if you need to leave. I know I overrun, and I'm going to do my best to try and keep us as close to 1 minute or 1 hour and 8 minutes. Apologies, Genta. So quickly, what do I think is a strength for this tool? It has a very simple interface. It may be intimidating at first, but it feels intuitive once you start to use it. It's highly customizable. You can find all kinds of creative ways to use multiple interaction types at once. I put a little heart, which I've never done before on any presentation, but that's because I'm a big fan of statistics. I'm a bit of a data nerd, and I thought it was fantastic to have a viewer statistics dashboard to be able to see how far your students got, how well they answered the questions, what particular concepts they might struggle with, and to be able to prepare for that in class is so valuable to teachers. There's also fantastic support, tutorials, and advice for scripting and producing your own videos. In the knowledge base, which we looked at the very end, and it's easy to spot, you can see it in the banner when you go to the hihaho site. They have blogs about different types of videos you can create. I think there's 20 odd videos they discuss, and how to do that, how to plan a video. They also have fantastic support on how to use different interactions and how it best works in certain contexts. And then their tutorial video is one of the most thorough and comprehensive I've ever seen. And simply watching that 12-minute video, you really get a thorough understanding of what hihaho is capable of. And it really does an excellent job of showcasing each of these interactions. Now, it's also mobile friendly. I've tested this out on my own phone. I've sent videos to friends and family to look at, and they've had a very positive experience, though I do caution on mobiles, it can be difficult to use some interactions if they're particularly small or if the text is small. It's viewable on any browser, though I don't have access to Safari, but that's my understanding. You can embed them in your learning management systems, and the player has 12 different languages that you can set it for. Now, for areas for advancement, while I was editing my videos, I thought it might be useful if I could group interactions together and replicate that group. So if I am using clickable images at the same time as a pause button and some text on my screen, perhaps I want to replicate that group of interactions. So it would be a nice feature if I could copy a group of interactions together. Create and share video playlists. This one almost didn't make it to the list because there is a way of creating a playlist where you link videos together, but I think it would also be lovely if in the dashboard itself, you could do that and send that video playlist out to students. So you don't have to go and change the settings for a video itself. You can just create a folder, for example, that you can share the entire contents with. And then I also thought it'd be useful to add, to enable and disable the skip button on questions. If a student tries a question, gets it wrong, goes back, tries it again, I notice the skip button might appear, and they might not bother to try getting the right answer this time. They might just move on. And the same was true for some of the open-ended questions, which might require more work from students, and I'd prefer if they didn't have the option to skip those sometimes. So that's virtually everything I'd like to say about hihaho. I highly, highly recommend it as an educational tool. I found it very versatile, very engaging, and I think that they're definitely on the right track here in terms of educational technology in the future of. So thank you guys very much. I really appreciate your patience. I've pushed you to the absolute limit today. We've gone a little further.